The power of kale. Why this superfood deserves the hype. Kale, a leafy green vegetable from the Brassica family, has earned its place in kitchens and diets across the world as both a culinary staple and a symbol of healthy living. Recognized for its deep green leaves, slightly earthy flavor, and adaptability in cooking, kale is celebrated for being far more than a garnish or side dish. It's a nutrient powerhouse with a fascinating story that stretches back thousands of years. In recent decades, kale has seen a resurgence in popularity, becoming a star ingredient in everything from smoothies and salads to chips and gourmet entrées. Its ability to be steamed, sautéed, roasted, or even blended raw makes it one of the most versatile vegetables on the plate. But kale is not merely a passing health trend. It has a legacy that spans ancient civilizations, medieval traditions, and modern wellness movements. Exploring kale takes us on an exciting journey through its deep historical roots in Europe and the Mediterranean, its cultural significance in different cuisines, and its transformation into a superfood icon of the 21st century. Along the way, we uncover not only its culinary uses, but also its impressive nutritional profile, which has made it a favorite among doctors, dietitians, and health-conscious eaters. In this article, we'll dive into the history of kale and how it became a global crop, cultural traditions that have embraced kale, from festive celebrations to everyday meals, health benefits that make it one of the most nutrient-dense foods available, culinary versatility, with insights into how chefs and home cooks use kale in creative ways, modern popularity and future trends, including sustainability and farming practices. Kale isn't just a leafy vegetable, it's a symbol of resilience, nourishment, and cultural exchange. As we peel back the layers of its story, you'll see why kale has been cherished for centuries, and why it continues to inspire people today. The history and cultural significance of kale. Early cultivation. From the Mediterranean to the world, kale belongs to the Brassica oleracea species, a family that also includes cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. It is considered one of the oldest cultivated leafy greens, with origins tracing back to the Eastern Mediterranean and Asia Minor. Historical records suggest that kale was being grown as early as 2000 BCE, valued not only for its nutritional qualities, but also for its hardiness, able to thrive in cooler climates where other crops struggled. The Greeks and Romans both recognized kale's importance. Roman agronomist Cato the Elder, 234–149 BCE, praised kale in his agricultural writings, highlighting its health-promoting properties. Its robust nature made it a reliable food source, and it quickly spread across Europe, where it became a dietary cornerstone for centuries. By the Middle Ages, kale was widely cultivated in Europe, especially in northern regions such as Scotland, Germany, and Scandinavia, where its ability to withstand frost made it indispensable. In fact, kale's cold resistance often provided communities with fresh greens during the harsh winters, when other vegetables were scarce. Kale in global cuisines. Kale's culinary journey is as diverse as the cultures that embraced it. Europe. In Scotland and Ireland, kale was a household staple, so much so that the word kale became synonymous with food itself. Traditional kale yards, kale gardens, provided essential sustenance for families. In the Netherlands, kale is famously used in stampot boerenkool, a hearty dish of mashed potatoes, and kale served with smoked sausage, a warming winter favorite. Asia. Though less central than other greens, varieties of kale found their way into Chinese and Japanese diets, often stir-fried with garlic, soy sauce, or sesame oil. These preparations emphasized kale's ability to absorb and complement bold flavors. Africa. In East African countries such as Kenya and Tanzania, kale, known locally as sukuma wiki, literally stretch the week, is a dietary mainstay. It's cooked with onions, tomatoes, and spices, served alongside staples like ugali, cornmeal porridge. The name reflects kale's role in helping families stretch meals economically throughout the week. North America. Kale was brought to North America by European settlers in the 17th century. Though it remained relatively modest in culinary importance for centuries, it surged to prominence in the late 20th and early 21st centuries as part of the health food movement, appearing in everything from green juices to kale chips. Cultural traditions and festivals centered around kale. Beyond its role as everyday sustenance, kale has woven itself into cultural traditions and celebrations. Scotland. Kale was historically so important that "come to kale" was a common phrase meaning to come for dinner. Even today, remnants of its cultural value can be found in Scottish language and literature. Germany. Grünkohlfahrt. One of the most vibrant kale traditions is the Grünkohlfahrt, or kale walk, in northern Germany, especially around Bremen and Oldenburg. During the winter, Groups of friends and families embark on countryside walks, carrying wagons filled with drinks and snacks. The walk ends with a festive meal centered around kale, grünkohl, sausages, and cured meats. Often, participants crown a kale king or kale queen to preside over the feast. Netherlands. As mentioned, kale dishes are tied to the colder months, and Dutch households often consider boerenkoolstampot a cultural marker of wintertime comfort food. United States. While not steeped in centuries-old tradition, kale has inspired its own cultural wave. Farmers, markets, health food festivals, and wellness movements frequently highlight kale as a superfood, and it has even entered popular culture in playful ways, from t-shirts reading "Eat More Kale" to appearances on restaurant menus as symbols of health-conscious dining. Kale's cultural symbolism. Kale's story reflects resilience, survival, and community. In medieval Europe, it was the green that saw families through tough winters. In Africa, it became the budget-friendly vegetable that kept households nourished throughout the week. And today, kale symbolizes a global shift toward wellness and plant-based living. What began as a humble leafy vegetable has grown into an international cultural icon, bridging the past and present while continuing to feed both body and spirit. Kale in mythology in medieval times. Kale in ancient mythology and folklore. While kale does not feature in mythology with the same grandeur as sacred grains like wheat or barley, it has its own subtle yet enduring presence in folklore, reflecting its role as a staple green across cultures. Greek and Roman lore. According to Roman legends, kale was thought to have sprung from the perspiration of the god Apollo after one of his intense battles. While more symbolic than literal, this tale highlights how kale was associated with vigor, strength, and renewal. The Greeks, too, valued kale for its restorative powers, often linking it with health deities such as Hygeia, the goddess of well-being. Northern European folklore. In Northern Europe, kale was sometimes considered a plant of protection and sustenance. Its robust growth in poor soil and harsh climates gave it an almost mystical reputation as a survivor's plant. In some Scandinavian traditions, kale patches were blessed to ensure good harvests, and certain communities viewed kale gardens as a sign of prosperity and resilience. Divination practices. Kale also entered the realm of folk customs. In parts of Scotland, young people would pull kale stalks on Halloween night, then celebrated as Samhain, to predict their future spouses. The stalk's shape, size, and condition were said to reveal the characteristics of the person they would marry. This playful fortune-telling ritual underscores kale's place not only on the table, but also in the imagination of communities. Kale's symbolism in medieval Europe. By the Middle Ages, kale was more than just food. It was a symbol of survival and endurance. Villages across Europe depended on it as one of the few green vegetables that could thrive during harsh winters. This gave kale a symbolic role as a guardian against famine and a gift of the land that kept families nourished when resources were scarce. The symbolism extended to language. In Scotland, kale meant not just the plant but food in general, signifying how central it was to survival. Communities would speak of kale broth as a meal, kale yards as vegetable gardens, and kale as a synonym for sustenance itself. Medicinal uses in medieval times. Kale was highly valued in medieval herbal medicine, often regarded as both food and cure. Digestive aid. Medieval healers prescribed kale to ease stomach troubles and promote healthy digestion. Its fibrous leaves were believed to cleanse the stomach. Anti-inflammatory properties. Poultices made of boiled kale leaves were sometimes applied to wounds, swelling, or joint pain. Detoxification. Some medieval texts described kale as a remedy for drunkenness, thought to sober the head after wine consumption. In fact, the Romans were known to eat kale before drinking to stave off intoxication. General tonic. Kale's reputation as a strengthening food made it a recommended diet for the weak, elderly, or ill. Herbalists considered it a warming plant that restored balance to the body's humors. Culinary uses in the medieval kitchen. In medieval kitchens, kale was an essential ingredient, particularly for peasants. It was boiled into potages, a thick, hearty soup made with whatever vegetables and grains were available. These kale-based dishes provided vital nourishment and were consumed daily. Because of its availability and resilience, kale was often considered poor man's food, yet it was indispensable for sustaining entire populations. Kale also occasionally appeared on the tables of the wealthy. Cookbooks from the Middle Ages reference kale and related greens in stews flavored with herbs, meats, and spices. Its versatility allowed it to serve as both a humble staple and a complementary green in more elaborate feasts. A bridge between the earthly and the symbolic. Kale's dual role during medieval times, both practical and symbolic, reflects the way communities viewed food as more than sustenance. It was medicine, magic, and meaning. Whether as a protective charm in folklore, a healing remedy in herbalism, or a filling meal in the daily lives of peasants, kale carried a weight that far exceeded its modest leaves. This period cemented kale's reputation as a resilient, life-giving plant, laying the foundation for its enduring presence in both diets and cultural consciousness. Living longer starts with small choices. If this helps you take a step, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more insights into vitality and long-term wellness. Know someone who needs this? Send it their way. Thanks for being here. Until next time, stay awesome. Michael Luxey.